the air with the new pressure and a new timeline. First thing tomorrow morning, that missing sub may run out of oxygen. That's according to the latest estimate from the Coast Guard. We are live in Canada and in Boston with the story the world is watching, with new questions tonight about accountability and safety, and what's up now with those underwater noises they've heard. Also new tonight, an explosion in the heart of Paris at an American school. Dozens hurt, hundreds of emergency workers racing to stop the fire. What we're just hearing from someone who watched it happen. Plus, why a federal agency says Amazon is tricking people, they say, into signing up for Prime and then sabotaging them when they try to cancel. And in tonight's backstory, something straight out of a movie as we go behind the scenes of a new doc looking at allegations China spied on a big-time tech company. And what does it take to get into the NBA draft? Apparently, zero basketball experience and a business degree. The bizarro story of a student who's on the draft list thanks to a loophole later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and the Coast Guard late tonight tells NBC News the 5 people inside that missing sub may run out of oxygen just after 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. That is just 14 hours from now. With officials now saying they're not really sure what those noises detected underwater overnight may have been. All of it adding intensity to this already desperate, incredibly complex international search, covering something like 10,000 square miles and expanding exponentially. With Coast Guard officials saying they are operating under the assumption right now that those people in that sub are alive, that this is a rescue, not a recovery at this point. Some of this new video just into us shows the latest from crews trying to find this tiny submersible, just 22 feet long, either on the surface or underwater, as we're seeing some new uncertainty around what was maybe a sign of possible hope. Rescuers detecting some underwater noises they thought could have been from this sub. No one's found anything yet. Watch.
We need to have hope, right? But I can't tell you what the noises are. But what I can tell you is, and I think this is the most important point, we're searching where the noises are.
That's the key thing here, right? So rescuers are out. You're taking a look at the Titan submersible. It is in extreme conditions here, potentially. It could be something like 2.5 miles deep in the ocean. Unbelievable pressure from how deep it is. It's pitch black, so dark, you can barely see your hand in front of your face. Kristen Dahlgren is on the ground for us in Boston, but I want to start with Ron Allen in St. John's, Canada. Ron, the oxygen supply is the biggest factor here, but it is not the only challenge.
That's what they're saying, yes. And there are some experts who have alluded to the fact that there may be other safety systems aboard this vessel that may prolong the oxygen supply. We just don't know. And that's not something that the Coast Guard has been talking about a lot. It's interesting that they are now putting this very specific time frame on what was thought to be a 96-hour supply of oxygen. But the rescue effort continues at an intense pace. There is still the assumption, the belief, the hope that the 5 are still alive and that there can be a rescue effectuated. Earlier today, we heard from the CEO of the Horizon Maritime, which is the company, the shipping company that took the vessel out there to begin the voyage down to the Titanic. Here's what he had to say about the sense of urgency. He has a crew of 17 still out there who are participating in the rescue effort. Take a listen.
We are very aware of the time sensitivity around this mission. The North Atlantic is always a challenging place, especially in the region that we're in.
From what we understand, the weather conditions out there are unlike what it is here in the bay. It's very calm here in the harbor. Out there, the winds are gusting up to 30 miles per hour. There are ocean swells of 6 to 7 feet, and it's pitch dark, as you were saying earlier, on the surface, and as well, certainly 2.5 miles down where the Titanic wreckage is. So the conditions are, they keep saying complex, but it just sounds impossible. It sounds very, very challenging.
We know who the 5 people are who are on board this submersible, including a British billionaire, Hamish Harding, including the CEO of OceanGate, the company that puts on these trips down to see the wreckage, Stockton Rush, the Dawood family, a father and son, as well as a French Navy diver. We are hearing now from one of the best friends of one of these passengers. Tell us more.
Yes, the father of the Dawood family, a Pakistani businessman who is there with his son. Here's what a friend of his had to say about why he wanted to do this. Take a listen.
It was like a dream for him to go down and see Titanic personally. He was very adventurous from the very young age, and he wanted to explore the world and wanted to see those places where very few people can go to.
All these people have been described as adventurous. This is obviously an extreme tour, not for the faint of heart. And again, the rescue effort continues with the expectation that they are still alive. More ships arriving on the scene with different capability tonight and have been throughout the day. And again, the concern about the oxygen level, which the Coast Guard is now saying could expire early tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Hallie?
Ron Allen live for us there up at St. John's. Thank you. Let me bring in Kristen Dahlgren, who is live in Boston, where we've been hearing from the Coast Guard. It's all happening, Kristen, as we're starting to hear more and more about safety concerns that people raised about this sub before this particular mission. There's one crew member, Josh Gates, tweeting today that he didn't go on it because he was worried about safety. There's somebody else over on GMA who said he also pulled out because of safety concerns. Tell us more.
Yeah, and Hallie, Josh Gates was also talking about how there may be more to this story and the testing that would eventually come out. And so, you know, we're trying to dig and learn more. We've learned a lot, actually, from a lawsuit that involved a former employee. Now, we've reached out to him. He doesn't want to speak. But at the time, he was raising concerns, apparently, about the Titan's hull, about the titanium carbon hull, and concerns that it wasn't thick enough. It wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure. He says he was fired, according to this lawsuit. And then there was a countersuit from OceanGate. And OceanGate's attorneys called it unparalleled safety feature when talking about the hull. It said it had undergone more than 50 test dives. It was a 5-inch carbon fiber titanium hull designed over 8 years of work. And we've heard Stockton Rush talking about what his concerns were going in. He thought that his vessel was very safe. And in the past on podcasts and in different interviews, he had been talking about his biggest concern was not the hull being damaged or failing. It was rather getting caught under something. So, you know, as we learn more about what exactly happened to this craft, I imagine we'll also be learning more about some concerns that were raised in the past, Hallie.
You in Boston there, Kristen, are at the center of a story that has captured the attention of the world. Can you tell us more about that piece of it? I imagine it is an incredible media crush where you are. There are so many people who are watching this.
Sorry, Hal, I lost you there. Can you say that one more time?
Kristen, if you have me back, I was just making the point that you're at the center of a story that has captured the attention of people around the world.
Right. And we see that in this rescue effort. And the Coast Guard has been really talking a lot about that and just how much help they're getting from around the world. We've got this French ship that's expected on scene at any time and may have a submersible that's able to go that deep and could be really instrumental in this. The UK also offering help and being very involved in it. Obviously, Canada, where it launched from, very involved. So a lot of people watching this, just where I am too, we're seeing press from around the world. There's, you know, reporters from Italy, from Japan. So a lot of interest in what's happening here, both from the media and the people at home, but also really most importantly, from people who are coming to help out with this rescue effort.
Kristen Dahlgren live for us in Boston. Thank you. Our thanks to Ron Allen at St. John's before her. To Paris now, where some 36 people are hurt, 2 people still missing after a huge explosion in the center of the city. Look at this. Videos like this one show the front of the building totally blown off. You had first responders rushing to try to put out the fire, to try to look for survivors. You could see the smoke from the explosion from all across Paris. Check that out. That's something that somebody captured on their camera. You had a lot of people taking pictures like this one, the sky cloudy with ash. Here's what we know so far. This happened at the American Academy of Paris, a design school for international students. 37 people hurt, 4 right now in serious condition. Nearly 300 firefighters tried to make sure that the flames didn't keep spreading to buildings nearby. Apparently, those fires are now under control. They're still looking for 2 people believed to be inside the building. No word on what triggered the explosion. NBC's Ali Arouzi is following this. He joins us now. Tell us more about what we're learning tonight, Ali.
Hey, Ali, that's right. 37 people injured, 4 of them seriously after that explosion in central Paris. Numerous police forces and firefighters on the scene. As you mentioned, almost 300 firefighters were mobilized there in 70 trucks. Now, rescue workers on the explosion site have been looking for 2 missing people in all of that rubble, and they're still unaccounted for. Now, the building was engulfed by flames, and as you said, much of it appears to have collapsed. but the blaze was later brought under control. Now, according to witnesses, there was a strong smell of gas before the blast. We have a soundbite from a student who lives nearby and describes what she saw and heard. Let's take a listen to her account.
Suddenly, I heard a huge noise. I turned towards the noise and saw a gigantic fireball, 20 or 30 meters high, as you see in the movies or the TV. With the noise and the scale of the explosion, I was really shaken. I still have ringing in my ears.
And Hallie, the Paris prosecutor said that after arriving at the scene, the initial checks of camera footage suggested the explosion occurred from within the building, which was next to the Val-de-Grâce church. But the authorities there are saying that the cause of the blast hasn't been determined. The area is being cordoned off. The mayor of Paris has been to the scene, and the interior minister has also warned people to avoid the area.
Is there any indication, Hallie, that this particular school, this international design school, was specifically targeted intentionally? Do we know yet?
It doesn't seem that way. It doesn't seem that way. There's obviously always a fear of terror in Paris. But no, it seems to have been a gas leak, which they're still identifying. Now, that school was a private international school, and Kent State University in Ohio also issued a statement saying that they were aware of the explosion and that Kent State does have 9 students at the Paris American Academy, all of whom have been accounted for and are safe. And just to give you a location of the blast, it took place in the 5th arrondissement, very popular place with Parisians and tourists.
Ali Arouzi, thank you very much for that reporting. Appreciate it. Back here at home, the stock market staying pretty calm today, even with signals that more interest rate hikes are probably coming. With Fed Chair Jay Powell telling Congress inflation is slowing down, but it is still too high. Brian Chung is joining us now. Okay, so probably more interest rates to come. What does this mean for people day to day? Prices are already high. Are they going to go up more?
Yeah, well, what it means is that, prices are coming down compared to especially last year, but that the borrowing costs for things like mortgages, credit cards, auto loans will continue to be expensive. And the reason why is even though the Fed didn't opt to further raise interest rates for the first time in over a year and a half last week, that there could still be more interest rate hikes coming later on this year. It all depends on what happens with inflation. You can see and you can feel it at the grocery store with a lot of things, namely cereal and bread and also dairy products getting a lot more expensive between May of last year and May of this year. The Federal Reserve saying they want to see improvement not just in food, but across all price categories before they wrap up their process of making those borrowing costs more expensive, Hallie.
People thought the Fed might have been done raising interest rates, at least for a little bit. We didn't see too much of a tremor go through the markets, at least not today, with these signals from Jay Powell. What's your sense of what the rest of the year's outlook looks like? What about people thinking about, how their mortgage rates could be affected if they're looking to buy a house down the road?
Yeah, well, again, the big story is that borrowing costs are going to remain expensive. Don't expect to see 3% on a 30-year fixed mortgage anytime soon. Now, when we talk about what the Federal Reserve is doing, it was notable that they decided not to raise interest rates last week. But the question naturally is, well, are they done forever? And the answer from the Federal Reserve Chairman, at least in congressional testimony today, was no. If they basically see the economy going as they expected, they could see the case for another 1 or 2 interest rate hikes through the end of this year. There's only another 4 meetings on the calendar. So for the Federal Reserve, the job is not finished. And the big reason for that, when you take a look at overall headline inflation, it's still pacing at 4% year over year. Federal Reserve really wants to see that somewhere closer to 2%. So don't put that mission accomplished banner up.
Brian Chung, thank you very much for that breakdown. Let's talk about Amazon getting sued by the government today for allegedly tricking people into signing up for Prime and then sabotaging customers when they tried to cancel. That's according to the FTC in a new lawsuit late today that accuses Amazon leadership of holding up or even rejecting changes that would have made it easier for people to cancel Prime because they say those changes, I'm quoting, adversely affected Amazon's bottom line. In other words, people canceling Prime didn't make Amazon as much money. In a statement, Amazon responded, saying that the FTC's claims are false on the facts and the law. We look forward to proving our case in court. Aaron Gilchrist is joining us now. Explain how the FTC says Amazon tried to trick people into getting Prime and then made it harder for them to cancel.
Yeah, so this was a 2-year investigation, and Amazon, the FTC says Amazon was using something called dark patterns to sort of manipulate. That's what I said when I saw that term.
What's a dark pattern?
You know what? I want to go right to it. We talked to the person who coined the term dark patterns back in 2010, Harry Brignall, and he explained that he's been campaigning against this for a while for companies that use these tactics in web-based platforms. So let's listen to what he says is the explanation of dark patterns.
Consumers might not really realize it, but when a large business really wants them to do something like signing up or buying something or sharing information, that business will create a team of design experts and psychologists and data scientists who will try lots of persuasive techniques, and they'll track your behavior and they'll measure what works. Sometimes the persuasion slips into manipulation, and if that's unfair or deceptive, it can be illegal.
And so this highly redacted 156-page lawsuit says that basically Amazon made it harder for people to buy things without being a Prime member. And then when people tried to cancel a Prime membership, they made it more difficult. They had to go through, Brignall says there was one point where there's like 11 steps you had to go through to cancel your membership.
Cancel it,
And so that's the FTC says is against the law, and they want Amazon to stop it.
What's going on with the FTC? Because this is the third lawsuit that it's filed against Amazon in just the last month. Is this a part of a broader pattern?
So they've been looking at Amazon in a couple of different ways, different parts of the Amazon company for a while now. Amazon Prime, obviously here, Alexa, and Amazon Ring, the Ring cameras, they settled lawsuits last month, I think it was, to the tune of $30 million. In this case, we may not see a settlement. This may go to court before Amazon walks away from it. We talked to one expert who said that this idea of dark patterns, there's still a gray area on the actual legal definition of it. And so Amazon may, she thinks, go to court with this. Here's what she had to say.
They also may just feel that this is a chance to actually put better definitions around what is a dark pattern or what is a practice that is really unfair or deceptive to consumers versus one that's just aggressive but really doesn't break the law. And the court decision here would help flesh that out.
And so we'll see if this heads to court. Amazon says they look forward to proving their case in court.
That's right. Could be a precedent setter, which is really interesting. If you have Prime, if you're somebody who's a customer that already has Prime, do you need to worry about anything? Do you need to do anything? Or at this point, no?
Not at this point, but the advocates say if you think you want to get rid of it, you need to make some noise to make sure that it gets easier for you to do that.
Aaron Gilchrist, fascinating. Thank you very much for that reporting and for those conversations. We're looking ahead to a potentially controversial meeting in the next hour or so as President Biden gets ready to welcome India's Prime Minister to the White House for his first state visit. Remember, the president himself has described this world that we live in here as a battle between democracy and autocracy. And Prime Minister Modi has come under fire for India's human rights record. That includes Modi's alleged role in a deadly riot that killed 1,000 people, many of them Muslims, and actually got him temporarily banned from the U.S. at one point. Allegations Modi censors journalists, his handling of the Kashmir region with Pakistan. Look at what's been happening today in New York. You had demonstrators lining up outside the United Nations, some supporting him. Some people were there in protest instead. You see some of them there. Modi didn't engage. Instead, he led hundreds of people in a yoga session. You see it here. People including the actor Richard Gere and New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Kayla Tausche is outside the White House. Talk about here the significance of this state dinner between, or the state visit between President Biden and Prime Minister Modi. It's about less about the human rights record for India, more about strengthening ties to India, and China's a part of that.
It is a part of that, Hallie, and India is a really important strategic partner for the U.S. It's got a really big economy. It's got a really big population, and it can be a big counterweight to China in the region and help the U.S. and allies like Japan and Australia defend against Chinese aggression in the South China Sea, especially important as relations with China have deteriorated, even though, some things have been smoothed over. But then you have President Biden calling the president of China a dictator, and the Chinese Foreign Ministry responding and hitting back, calling those comments extremely absurd and irresponsible. But Democrats in Congress want to make sure that even though these visits are usually focused on pre-planned deliverables and pomp and circumstance, and they're usually very friendly, that things like human rights are not going to get swept under the rug. More than 70 Democrats in both chambers of Congress writing a letter to President Biden about the visit of Prime Minister Modi and suggesting that any friendship with India be built not only on our many shared interests, but also on our shared values. Modi will also be addressing Congress, as has become typical. And certainly there's a little bit of consternation there, Hallie.
He has also addressed Elon Musk, if you will, or at least he's at least talking with him. Here's a little bit of that.
I'm actually incredibly excited about the future of India. I think India has more promise than any large country in the world. I am a fan of Modi's.
That's a huge part of this, too, Kayla, right? Getting Modi in a room with people who want to invest in India.
And all of these state visits, Hallie, include sort of a who's who of corporate America, the companies that operate in that country that is visiting. In this case, it's the top executives whose companies are operating in India, like Apple, which has a big portion of its supply chain in India. And then you have many top Indian American executives, like the executives leading Google, Microsoft, and Federal Express. And experts expect that there could also be discussions, for instance, about data sharing and intellectual property and critical technology, specifically in the defense sector, where the U.S. really wants to wean India off of its reliance on Russia. Hallie.
Kayla Tausche, live for us outside the White House. Good to see you, as always, Kayla. Appreciate it. So there's a new firestorm over Supreme Court ethics tonight, with some senators saying they want to change up how the justices do business, after a new report from ProPublica found Justice Samuel Alito took, but did not disclose, luxury gifts from somebody who later had cases in front of the court. Here's the deal. ProPublica says back in 2008, there's this hedge fund billionaire, Paul Singer, who flew Alito on a private jet to Alaska for a fishing trip. That's a flight that would have cost like $100,000 just one way. Singer is a big-time Republican donor. You see him here. He's on the right of this picture. That's Alito in the center next to him. In the years after, Singer's hedge fund has appeared before the court at least 10 times in cases Alito did not recuse himself from. Alito's trying to preemptively address this report even before it was published. In an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal, he writes he had no obligation to step away from cases connected to Singer, somebody he says he only talked with a handful of times. Now, if this whole thing sounds a little bit familiar, that may be because it a little bit is. Just last month, ProPublica reported that another Supreme Court Justice, Clarence Thomas, had been getting fancy trips paid for by a billionaire Republican donor. Thomas saying he didn't need to disclose those trips either. Lawrence Hurley joins us now. At what point, Lawrence, we've laid out sort of the issues here with ProPublica pointing out what Samuel Alito did and Paul Singer. At what point does this become an ethics issue that ends up needing to get addressed by the court itself? The whole issue here, right, is that the Supreme Court does not have to abide by the laws of Congress or whatever. There is no sort of formal ethics legal structure in place for the court.
That's right. I mean, the Supreme Court basically polices itself. So absent any action by Congress, it's up to the justices themselves to decide what to do. And so far, all they've done is put out this kind of statement of ethics principles a couple of months ago, which sort of just reaffirmed their commitment to the existing rules, but didn't really address any of the new issues that have arisen. And then if Congress, does go ahead and pass some new laws, which they've been talking about, there are questions there on separation of powers, whether Congress has the power to make the Supreme Court do that. And that's something the Chief Justice raised when he refused to testify before the Senate.
Alito said he took a seat that would have otherwise been unoccupied anyway, right? Is that, you talked about how the Supreme Court polices itself. Does any of that matter, Lawrence? And I mean that from a sort of accountability perspective.
Yeah, I mean, there are broader issues here that go beyond, whether there's recusal rules and there's disclosure rules, but there's a bigger question of just the appearance of justices taking these very expensive gifts and just the appearance of being sort of in thrall to individual, extremely wealthy people. And that's not really covered by the recusal rules or the disclosure rules. So those questions are kind of left to the justices themselves to decide, do you want to be someone who is seen as being, beholden to some individual wealthy person, or whether you feel like in your personal life you should be a bit more careful.
Lawrence Hurley, live for us there on that. Lawrence, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
More to get to here on the show, including this full ground stop in place in Dallas at the airport there. That's because folks are getting ready for some really intense thunderstorms. Texas is just trying to catch a break here because they have had very rough weather, a stretch of it. Extreme heat is hitting there and in a lot of the South, breaking records for people living in that part of the country. Look at some of these temperatures here. Parts of Texas are seeing 111, 112, 113. It's not just Texas. You've got 25 million people in that state, in Oklahoma, New Mexico, Louisiana, also facing extreme heat alerts, with officials saying do whatever you can to stay cool. That's not the only issue that people are facing weather-wise. 12 million people are looking at severe weather possibilities, really bad thunderstorms, maybe tornadoes, hail bigger than 2 inches, affecting states all the way from Wyoming down through Texas. NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns joins us now. And Bill, people will say I think it's officially summer today, right? It's hot in Texas. That's not a shocker. This kind of heat is actually surprising.
It is, and a lot of people want to know, Hallie, like how unusual is this and how much of it's connected to climate change. So let me try to explain some of that to you. First, what's happening now. It got a little bit of a break because of those storms around Dallas and in areas of Oklahoma. That's why it just feels like 90 there. But your attention is immediately drawn to Central Texas and South Texas, where San Antonio feels like 115, 121 in the shade right now in Corpus Christi. And by the way, Del Rio at the International Airport is 115 degrees right now. It's a dry heat like Phoenix, but the all-time temperature record in Texas is 120, not that far away. So let me explain something. A private company called the Climate Central has come up with something called the Climate Shift Index. So that lets us know events like this in real time, kind of what we're dealing with. So this is our typical climate, average temperatures here. Sometimes it's extremely cold, sometimes it's extremely warm, but it doesn't happen as often. But as we have warmed our planet up by about 2 or 3 degrees, the average hasn't changed much. But the biggest difference is made on the extreme ends, especially the extremely warm ends, because we've shifted that. So the frequency of, say, 90 happens much more often now than it used to. So let me show you what the Climate Shift Index shows us right now in Texas. And you guys have this graphic for me. And the scale goes from 0 to 5. 5 means it's exceptionally rare, and we have very high confidence this is a climate-driven event. And that right now, the 5, which is, doesn't happen that often, is from San Antonio all the way down through areas of South Texas. And when we get days like this, you get in the dangerous range. I just showed you that 121. So heat exhaustion is at 103. When we start talking about heat stroke, you don't have to spend that much time outside. It gets up to about 125. Everyone gets at risk. So, Hallie, when we get, we talk about our warming climate, we're going to have more and more events like this as the years go on.
Bill Cairns, an illuminating discussion. Thank you very much, as always. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, new DNA details in that Idaho quadruple murder case, what we're just finding out from court documents. Plus, experts sounding the alarm with national test scores way down for 13-year-olds. It's such a concern that one big school superintendent said we should all be worried. What this learning loss looks like next. So a major alarm bell tonight in the world of education. This new report out shows that math and reading scores for 13-year-olds is dropping and dropping fast. The numbers have hit the lowest levels in decades. This is a test known as the nation's report card. It shows that all that learning loss during the pandemic is still here. It is still persistent after all that chaos. Look at this. Student scores dropped 9 points in math. The last time the score was this low was back in 1990. It dropped 4 points in reading. The last time it was that low, 2004. The head of the nation's second biggest school district tells NBC News that we should all be worried.
As a nation, this is a time to treat this as a national crisis that it really is. Across the country, we need to take bold action to remedy and accelerate kids across our country towards their full academic potential.
Lindsay Reiser is joining us to break this all down for us. So, Lindsay, a national crisis, right? That is how people are describing it. We've been talking about learning loss for years. What's going to get done about it? In other words, what's the solution here?
Well, Hallie, this is an alarm, right? This is alarming, alarm bells. Teachers say they've been trying to wave these red flags for a while, and the results here are pretty grim. I mean, you mentioned the drops that we're seeing. So we're seeing a 4-point drop in reading. We're seeing a 9-point drop in math, the largest decline in the history of this assessment since it's been given in the 70s. So what are some of the factors here? Well, you mentioned one of them, the pandemic, of course, that disruption to classroom learning. concerning. That is what experts point to, but also things like absenteeism. We're seeing the rate of absenteeism double from 2020 from 5% to 10%. That's students missing 5 or more days in a school year. We're talking about the love of reading. I mean, high performers tend to read almost every single day. We're seeing, though, 31% of 13-year-olds who responded to the survey saying they either never read or hardly read. That's up from that 22% in 2012 who said the same thing. Also, teachers that we're talking to, Hallie, they're sensing this apathy that students have. Let's go ahead and listen.
There are definite gaps in learning, but the bigger gaps are in learning behaviors and their readiness to even show up and be attentive or be prepared. That is where I feel like the biggest learning loss has happened. And of course, that then impacts their ability to be ready for instruction and absorb all that instruction.
So what's being done about it, Hallie? That's the question that you asked. The education secretary said that this points out it's going to take years and investment to try and reverse some of these trends. Miguel Cardona also saying that schools and districts have committed about 60% of their American Rescue Plan funds to things like more teachers and support staff, to tutoring and after-school and summer programs. But the National Education Association, the largest teachers union, Hallie, is also trying to shine a spotlight, essentially, in saying our classrooms are severely underfunded. They want to see programs like PE and art protected, and they also want to ensure small class size, Hallie.
There's also a racial disparity here, Lindsay, right?
Absolutely, Hallie. I mean, some of the numbers are pretty staggering. We're going to show them up on your screen, especially when we're talking about math. So we're seeing right now a drop among American Indian and Alaska Native students by 20 points from the time that the assessment was last given. That was 4 years ago. We're seeing a 13-point drop among Black students, a 10-point drop among Hispanic students compared to a 6-point drop among white counterparts. And so, again, the president of the National Education Association essentially saying this highlights what they've been talking about, that the pandemic really exacerbated some of these racial gaps and gaps among high and lower performers, Hallie.
Lindsay Reiser, thank you very much for that reporting. As you say, alarm bell for a lot of people. To Idaho tonight, where prosecutors say the DNA of the man charged with murdering 4 University of Idaho students, it's a match to DNA found at the crime scene. The suspect gave a cheek swab to investigators, and apparently they say that cheek swab matched DNA found on a knife sheath at the crime scene, according to county prosecutors in a new court filing. You'll remember this person is accused of breaking into the home of students Zana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves, and stabbing them to death in November of last year. Aaron McLaughlin joins us now. Talk about this DNA link here, Aaron, and its significance.
Yeah, well, in these court documents, Hallie, prosecution outlining just how investigators were able to use this DNA sample that led them straight to Brian Kohberger. They extracted DNA from the sheath of a knife that was found at the murder scene. According to the documents, the sheath was partially covered by a comforter, partially covered by one of the victims' bodies. They found DNA on the sheath. From there, handing the DNA over to the FBI. The FBI employing many of the tactics that are readily available to the public to begin to create a family tree that investigators allege included hundreds of Brian Kohberger's family. From there, narrowing that pool down to Brian Kohberger himself, the FBI passing the tip off to local authorities who then made the arrest. Now news of what they're calling a, quote, statistical match in the court document, saying the DNA profile is at least 5.37 octillion times more likely to be seen if the defendant is the source than if an unrelated individual randomly selected from the general population is the source. Hallie.
Aaron McLaughlin, thank you very much. Live for us on that. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, one person is dead after Israeli settlers stormed a Palestinian town in the occupied West Bank. People in the area say they set fire to dozens of cars and some homes, said to be in retaliation for the 4 Israelis killed by Palestinian gunmen. We told you about that yesterday. Number 2, the Massachusetts Air National Guardsman charged with leaking classified documents is officially pleading not guilty today to 6 federal counts. Jack Teixeira is accused of sharing some of that Pentagon stuff on social media on Discord. If convicted on all the counts, he could face 6 decades in prison. Number 3, the former special counsel John Durham has been testifying in front of the House Judiciary Committee today. It's because of his report criticizing how the FBI handled the investigation into the Trump campaign's ties to Russia during the 2016 election. The 300-page report accuses the agency of opening the investigation based on vague and insufficient information. Number 4, for the first time ever, U.S. regulators have approved the sale of lab-grown chicken grown in a lab. It's real chicken. It's not vegan. Upside Foods and Good Meat, these 2 companies, are now going to be able to sell this stuff. Don't expect to see it in supermarkets anytime soon. It's still very expensive to make. A few exclusive restaurants will carry it, at least for now. Number 5, speaking of food, a prominent chef in Australia, well, he's defending his decision to ban vegans from his restaurant. The chef says he made the move after getting into an argument with a customer who was mad about how few vegan options there were on the menu. So he posted this, that sadly all vegans are now banned for, quote, mental health reasons. How's he gonna know? All right, when we come back, Congress is under pressure to do something, to do anything about AI. We'll tell you what Chuck Schumer is trying to do. All hands on deck, he says. That's next. The nation's top Senate Democrat warning it is all hands on deck tonight in the latest push to try to get ahead of artificial intelligence and put some boundaries around it. Watch.
I believe Congress must join the AI revolution, but there are real dangers too. Job displacement, misinformation, a new age of weaponry, the risk of being unable to manage this technology altogether.
So lots of risks. What is Congress going to do about it? Well, this proposal from Chuck Schumer would try to do things like protect elections from misinformation generated by AI. It would shield, hopefully, U.S. workers and intellectual property, and it would create some new guardrails to ward off bad actors. This is after President Biden met with AI leaders yesterday to talk about how big tech companies are using AI. Hallie Vitale joins us now. There is a bit, Hallie, of, I think, appropriate skepticism to the idea that Congress is going to be able to actually regulate this new technology. And I say that only because of past precedent, Hallie. Social media companies, Facebook, Twitter, those are years old now, and Congress still hasn't even gotten really a handle on that kind of thing. What makes people think that Congress can do something now about this emerging technology?
Well, look, I think that you're right to point out what hasn't been done in the past. I mean, we saw urgency even just in the last year up here on Capitol Hill to regulate forums like Facebook, like Instagram, especially in relation to how younger kids and younger people interact with them. And still that legislation has pretty much gone nowhere. And so the skepticism is, of course, healthy here when it comes to anything on Capitol Hill. But one of the arguments that Senator Schumer is making here is that because this platform and these AI techniques are emerging right now, they can't miss the boat like they did on regulating social media and other things like that. They want to do this right now because this is a platform that is burgeoning right now. And that's the argument that Schumer is making, that while this is the hot topic, they got to pounce on it as a hot topic to legislate.
So how does that process move forward? Typically, it's like, you know, not to get nerdy, but like markups, meetings, hearings, et cetera.
Yeah, the stuff that you have to pay people like me to follow. But no, in this case, what Schumer is saying is that he wants to put all of these AI experts into one room so that people don't have to go one by one, AI expert by AI expert, and have drawn out conversations. Instead, what Schumer is saying is in order to expedite this, he can put a bunch of these experts in one room so that Congress can hear in totality what the pros and what the cons are to AI technology and the ways in which they might have to and could regulate it going forward. So you mentioned, for example, election mis and disinformation. That's one of the places that I think many of the lawmakers in this building would think, yeah, That's probably something we should legislate around. The idea that maybe you lose workers to this, but also businesses could be more profitable. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways that you could start regulating this. I think the key here is that Schumer just wants to make it so that they're starting this conversation. Again, we've seen urgency behind topics like this before and nothing's actually manifested. But I think the hope is that AI, because it's such a new space, it's something that has less partisan baggage and then could be more bipartisan in actually trying to regulate it.
We shall see. Hallie Vitale live for us on the Hill tonight. Hallie, good to see you. Thank you. Coming up here on the show, how our CNBC team got inside a real-life spy thriller about China's plot to steal U.S. technology. That's in the backstory. Plus, what's making this snow in Utah turn kind of pink? That's later in the local. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, Washington State now has the nation's least wanted top spot, America's most expensive gas. The average price of a gallon there is now $4.93 a gallon, according to AAA. Yes, almost $5 for a gallon of gas. That's obviously way above the national average. Gas has gone up about 30 cents in just the last month, beating out longtime #1 California. You know, that used to be the most expensive spot, not anymore. Out of our Southern Bureau, a car shop owner now owes like $40,000 to some workers after paying one of them with more than 90,000 oily pennies. That's right, that worker said he was owed one more paycheck, so the owner went and dumped those pennies on his driveway, along with a pay stub with a swear word on it. The shop called it a gotcha to a subpar ex-employee, according to a court filing. Now a judge says he has to pay back that guy and 8 other workers for unpaid overtime and damages, hopefully not in pennies or dimes. And out of our Western Bureau, check this out. They're calling it, can you tell? I don't know. They say it's watermelon snow. Basically algae that changes color to protect itself. It's turning the snow kind of pink. Can you see it, like sort of the stripes there? It's like pink, red, orange, like an interesting phenomenon. I don't know if I'd call it pink snow, maybe stripy snow, zebra snow. I'm no biologist, however. There you go. Anyways, time now to get the backstory, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. And tonight, we're talking about a new CNBC documentary that's taken a look at the spying push by China, these plots to steal really important information about sensitive U.S. technology. Guys, this is like straight out of a spy thriller, right? This documentary, taking us inside a tense 2017 meeting at the headquarters of GE Aviation. That's where they make things like parts for commercial planes and military jets. When an employee who law enforcement believed was being pursued by Chinese spies for information was confronted by his bosses and federal agents. Yes, it was a sting operation, and it wasn't small potatoes either. Listen to how folks who talked to CNBC described it.
This is a spy story. This is as big of a case as we've had in 20 years.
There is a Chinese spy who's trying to obtain secret technology.
A story that shows how millions of American jobs now and in the future are on the line.
So that GE employee turned out to be just a cog in a much larger operational wheel from the Chinese to infiltrate U.S. companies, steal their secret information, and gain not just an edge on them, but the hope was apparently to try to take down the companies altogether. This incident triggered a major crackdown on Chinese operations in the U.S., leading to a huge first in the fight against Chinese spying operations. An intel officer and handler of that GE employee extradited to the U.S. and sentenced to 20 years in prison. CNBC's Eamon Javers is behind that new documentary. He is joining us now for the backstory. And Eamon, you know this segment. It's take us behind the curtain, right? Bring us into like the reporter's notebook on a project that I know you've been working on for a very long time here. This specific case was settled with this intel officer's sentencing back in 2022. Tell me about your process in thinking, okay, I want to highlight this. I want to make a doc about it. I want to put this in the spotlight here.
Yeah, you know, this came about because I was talking to my sources in the U.S. intelligence community, and they were telling me over and over again, you know, we don't think corporate America gets it. You know, CEOs, folks in boardrooms, they understand that Chinese spies are trying to steal their intellectual property, but they don't understand the scale of the effort that's being arrayed against them. And they all pointed to this particular case because it's the first time that a Chinese Ministry of State Security officer saw the inside of a U.S. prison ever. And Ministry of State Security in China is sort of like their FBI and CIA put together. They do both kinds of things. So this is a historic case, which is why we wanted to focus on it. But we also wanted to talk to all of the law enforcement and intelligence professionals who can guide us through this secret world. And we talked to a lot of spies and a lot of G-men.
You talked about law enforcement officials. You talked to the FBI director, to Chris Wray.
Yes.
Let me play a little bit of that discussion between the two of you.
Every major American corporation in any of these fields needs to assume that they are a target to be either replaced or gutted.
What's at stake here for the U.S. economy? American quality of life, American innovation, ultimately American national security. This is not just Wall Street, it's Main Street.
Okay, so that's Chris Wray, but also Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Mark Warner in a joint interview. That stuff, just so people know, that's rare. We don't see that all the time, right? They sat down and talked with you on the record. I assume that is because they felt like this is something that needs to have an alarm sounded about it, right? The issue of Chinese spying and intellectual property.
Warner and Rubio are the chairman and ranking member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, so they're getting all this raw intelligence. They see the scale of the threat, and they've been trying to warn corporate executives for years about this. They say the mood has been changing a little bit since the pandemic. They're getting a more receptive ear to that. But both senators wanted to talk to us side by side because they wanted to illustrate visually the fact that this is a bipartisan issue. They work together on this, even in Washington. Hallie, as you know, so deeply divided on everything. This was a rare bipartisan interview.
The other side of the coin, of course, is the Chinese. And the Chinese government, in response to this documentary, responded to you. I want to read, just so people know how they responded. They said that the Chinese government has never participated or supported anyone in any form in stealing commercial secrets. Some people and institutions in the U.S. have been making false accusations. Putting on your sort of like analyst, doc maker hat here, what kind of an impact, and I know this might be tough to predict, but what kind of an impact do you think shining a spotlight on this, as you're doing in this documentary, could have on these Chinese operations?
Well, that's an interesting question. One of the people that we talked to in this is a longtime CIA counterintelligence official named Jim Olson, who was like a total Mission Impossible guy. He actually was stationed for the CIA in Moscow undercover during the height of the Cold War. It was the kind of guy who was like dropping into manhole covers and tapping phone lines for the CIA in Russia. He's a veteran now, and he says what he wants is for the CIA and other U.S. intelligence community entities to do a lot more of this, right? Send a lot more double agents back at the Chinese intelligence officers who are trying to steal these secrets. He feels like the U.S. intelligence community has been maybe a little bit too passive, if I can put words in his mouth, on this, and he would like to see a much more aggressive spy versus spy front. But otherwise, you've got to look at the companies themselves that are doing business in China, exposing their intellectual property to China, and thinking about how they're going to make money there. And what U.S. intelligence wants them to think about a little bit more is how they're going to stay in business long term, given the scale of this threat.
Eamon Javers, you are doing so much cool stuff, and we're super excited to watch the full doc tonight. Eamon, thank you so much.
Hallie.
China's corporate spy war. That's tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern, over on CNBC. Do not miss it. Coming up here on the show, all kinds of big stars are going to be in tomorrow's NBA draft. Maybe even the next LeBron, people say. But there's one guy on the draft list. He doesn't even play basketball. So what? Why is he there? He's going to tell us. Coming up.
So I made a bet with my friends, and I made it into the NBA draft.
He made a bet, 21-year-old Jordan Haber. Let's just say he does not fit the typical profile of a draft pick. He didn't play college ball. He didn't play basketball in high school. He didn't play basketball in middle school either. He's actually going to law school in the fall. So why is he one of the names that the NBA could get to pick from? He did a bunch of research. He found a loophole in the league's collective bargaining agreement. Shaq Brewster joins us now. Does this mean that I can be in the NBA draft or you could be in the NBA draft, Shaq?
That was my question, Hallie. It was clearly a missed opportunity on my behalf. I could have been living the dream like Jordan is right now. But essentially what happened was he exploited a provision in the CBA, the agreement between the players and the league, essentially how this all operates. And that provision was intended to make sure that high school players go on to college before they enter the NBA draft. I'll let you see it on screen right there. It essentially says a player has to be at least 19 years old, has to be at least a season removed from high school graduation. Well, Jordan, a college graduate, fits that provision, so he filled out the paperwork and was able to make it into the draft. I should note there are plenty of other people who have done this in the past. This year alone, there's more than a dozen other names like this. The difference with Jordan, Hallie, is that he's a TikTok sensation. He already has been had notoriety on TikTok, so this has gone a little further than some of those other names. I asked him. He knows he's not getting in the draft. He knows he's not going to be called, I should say, in the draft. What is his main goal from this? Listen to what he told me.
I genuinely want people to look at this and go, I can do anything if I put my mind to it. I've had kids DM me being like, hey, I tried out for my high school basketball team because of you. I've had adults be like, hey, I watched your YouTube video. I sent a cold DM to my boss or somebody else, and I got a promotion, or I got a little bit of a raise, or I got some compliments at work. That means more to me than any single view could ever mean.
So you hear that, and you can understand some excitement that he has there. He, by the way, is paying for this mostly himself. He has an Airbnb in New York right now to stay there during the draft, coming out of his pocket. And the one thing that he does want to do, it looks similar to what many of the actual players who are drafted get to do. He just wants a handshake with Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA. So let's see if he ends up getting that after all this time in Brooklyn.
If he doesn't get picked, he doesn't get the handshake, right?
Exactly, unless he finds him separately somewhere else.
Real quick, Victor Wembanyama, I mean, people say he's like the best since LeBron. He's going to go #1 for sure, right? That's like a done deal.
That's a done deal. He will be going to the San Antonio Spurs. That's why you're seeing so much attention with him. That's why you see some of this video. I believe we have it of him trying to get in the subway and struggling to do just that, Hallie.
Because he's so popular, he's so famous, everybody wants a piece of him already. Also, he's so tall, Shaq Brewster.
Look at that.
Thank you so much. 7'3", that's what it looks like. Appreciate it, Shaq. That does it for us this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air with the new pressure and a new timeline. First thing tomorrow morning, that missing sub may run out of oxygen, according to the latest estimate from the Coast Guard. We are live in Canada and in Boston with team coverage on the story the world is watching, and new questions tonight about accountability and safety. Plus, what's up now with those underwater noises they've heard. Also new tonight, an explosion in the heart of Paris at an American school. Dozens hurt, hundreds of emergency workers racing to stop this fire. What we're just hearing from somebody who watched it happen. Plus, coming up this hour here in Washington, India's prime minister is set to arrive at the White House for his first state visit. Why that trip's coming with a side of controversy for Prime Minister Modi and President Biden. Here's a hint, it kind of has to do with China. Plus, some new ethics question tonight for another conservative member of the Supreme Court. How Justice Samuel Alito is defending his alleged ties to a billionaire Republican donor and a fishing trip to Alaska. Plus, new details coming into us on the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students. Prosecutors say tonight the DNA is a match. That's coming up later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and the Coast Guard late tonight tells NBC News the 5 people inside that missing sub may run out of oxygen just after 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's just about 13 hours from now, with officials now saying they are really not sure what those noises detected underwater overnight may have been. All of it is adding an intensity to an already desperate, incredibly complex international search. It's covering something like 10,000 square miles, expanding exponentially, with Coast Guard officials saying they're operating under the assumption right now that those people are alive, that this is a rescue mission, not a recovery mission, not yet. Some of this new video, look at this, just into us, shows the latest from crews who are trying to find this tiny submersible. It's 22 feet long. That's like a few feet longer than a minivan, right? They're looking on the surface. They're looking and listening underwater with some new uncertainty around what was maybe a sign of possible hope. Rescuers detecting some underwater noises from sonar buoys that they thought could have been from this sub. No one has found anything yet. Watch.
We need to have hope, right? But I can't tell you what the noises are. But what I can tell you is, and I think this is the most important point, we're searching where the noises are.
That is key here. And while they look, this sub might be in incredibly extreme conditions, possibly up to 2.5 miles deep in the ocean. There's so much water pressure on this thing. It is pitch black. It's so dark you can barely see your hand in front of your face. We've got team coverage tonight. Kristen Dahlgren is on the ground for us in Boston, but I want to start with Ron Allen, who's in St. John's, Canada, where a lot of the rescue apparatus is launching from. The oxygen supply is the biggest factor here, Ron. There are a lot of other challenges, including getting the right rescuers and responders to this search area.
Yes, just getting there. We're about 400 miles from the site. It's out that direction at the end of this harbor. It's 900 miles from Boston and the Cape area of the United States. So, yes, it's been a challenge just getting there. And once there, it's a challenge searching this area that's been described as big as twice the size of Connecticut on the surface and in the depths, of course, going down some 2.5 miles where the Titanic wreckage is. The weather also out there, we are hearing reports that there are somewhat stormy conditions at times, wind gusts up to 35 miles per hour, ocean swells of 6 or 7 feet. So there are a lot of factors that are challenging, is the way the Coast Guard and others put it, to put it mildly. Earlier, we heard from the CEO of the shipping company that took the submersible out there. It's called Horizon Maritime. Here's what the CEO had to say about the race against time, the conditions, and what they're trying to focus on. Take a listen.
We are very aware of the time sensitivity around this mission. The North Atlantic is always a challenging place, especially in the region that we're in.
It's really hard to underestimate how much out in the middle of nowhere this is all happening. Hundreds of miles at sea, the North Atlantic. Challenging just to get there, and then challenging to operate once there. There are more ships arriving with different capacities. Many of them have sonar, the ability to see into the depths, or remotely controlled devices that can go down at greater depths than manned vehicles or submarines. And that's what they're relying on to try and find this. The working assumption seems to be that this vessel has fallen to the depths of the ocean. And again, in that part of the ocean, it's some 14,000 feet deep, which is just incredible to think about. And yes, it's a race against time. It's interesting that the Coast Guard put this specific time frame on the oxygen supply. There have been some who've been speculating that the team there may be able to do things to extend the oxygen supply. But again, it's unclear exactly what's happening there, where they are. But again, the hope is that they are alive and that there'll be a rescue.
We talk about the 5 people who are on board, including the OceanGate CEO, Stockton Rush. In just the last 30 minutes or so, one of the members of our team has spoken with somebody who knows him well. Brian Dennis's business is right next to OceanGate's. Here's a little bit of what he's telling us.
I'm feeling hope. I'm feeling hopeful. You know, I'm praying for a miracle. Yeah, and I'm working on my projects, you know, but circulating around in my mind is, Lord, help them. Lord, give them peace.
It just seems that is such the thinking from so many people who know the 5 on board this sub at this moment in this absolutely desperate search, Ron.
It is. It's terrifying for people who know them, terrifying for people who don't. We talked to a lot of people in this community. Many come down to this park area in the evening to kind of just find out the latest news, understand what's going on. It's somewhat solemn, but there is hope. And as the time ticks by, we also heard from a friend of the Pakistani businessman who was on aboard the craft with his son, Shahzada Dawood. We spoke to a friend of his. Here's some of what he had to say about his motivation for going on an adventure like this. Take a listen.
It was like a dream for him to go down and see Titanic personally. He was very adventurous from the very young age, and he wanted to explore the world and wanted to see those places where very few people can go to.
Certainly a lot of risk. All these people were described as adventurers. This was a trip of a lifetime. Some actually had done it a number of times because they're experts at this, and this is what they do to some extent. But again, the bottom line is, yes, a race against time. time's running out. It's getting dark here in this part of the world again, and the hope is there's a lot of hope being placed on a French vessel that's arriving here sometime tonight that has a remotely controlled robotic device that is said to be able to go down some 13,000 feet, and the hope is that that device might be able to essentially bring about a miracle and find this thing and find these people, and where they can then begin the process of trying to effectuate some kind of a rescue. Hallie?
Ron Allen, live for us there at St. John's. Ron, thank you very much. I want to go to Kristen Dahlgren, who's live for us in Boston. There is, Kristen, there are the facts of the matter, what we know from the Coast Guard, from officials who are working on this rescue. There is speculation from people who are experts in the sort of submersible field and the underwater search and exploration field. And then there's a third, I think, category or bucket here, and that is safety concerns being raised about this sub. There's one would-be crew member, Josh Gates, who is tweeting out today that he did not go on this because he was worried about safety. Somebody else over on ABC News said they also pulled out because of concerns about this. Tell us more.
Right, and there at the end of Josh Gates' tweet, you can see that he was talking about there's more to the history of Titan and its testing that still hasn't come out. So simultaneous to having this massive rescue operation going on, we are beginning to hear from these people who were concerned about the safety. There were widespread reports of a letter sent from industry officials to OceanGate, worried about a catastrophic failure in this. We're also seeing some lawsuits now and documents from the lawsuits in which a former employee said he raised concerns about the carbon titanium hull, and he was subsequently fired, and then there were lawsuits back and forth. In those filings, OceanGate defending itself, its attorney calling it an unparalleled safety feature, that hull, saying it had undergone more than 50 tests, was 5 inches of carbon fiber and titanium, and it was designed over 8 years' work. So really defending, and also then some questions now coming out about how involved the University of Washington was, because that was one thing that Stockton Rush said that they helped design it along, with NASA. And so now some questions about that as well. So that's all being unpacked as we are now also watching this massive rescue operation, Hallie.
You are watching this massive rescue operation. The world is watching this massive rescue operation, Kristen. I have to imagine that the scene where you are is incredibly intense, just given how much globally people are paying attention to this. Anything related to Titanic wreckage, this missing submersible, this race against time, everybody's talking about it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And while we were here kind of alone on our first day, now, there's a massive media presence here as well. Somebody from Japanese TV just walked by kind of showing the media set up here. We've heard reporters from Italy as well. So a lot of interest from people around the world. And in large part because so many countries are volunteering to help in this. There are assets coming in from France that we've been talking about with you over the past couple of days. The UK is watching things. Of course, Canada very involved. And so a lot of countries are saying they will jump in to help if needed. And a lot of people watching, especially as that clock ticks down, things quite desperate, and a lot of people still holding on to hope that we have a happy ending to this story.
Kristen Dahlgren, so many people holding on to that hope. Thank you very much. Let's take you overseas to Paris now, where some 36 people are hurt. 2 people still missing after a huge explosion in the center of the city. Look at this. We're seeing some pictures like these showing the front of the building totally, look at that, the corner just blown off there. You had first responders rushing in to try to put out the fire, look for survivors. You could see the plume of smoke from this thing. Look at that. All across Paris, you had people taking videos, showing the sky cloudy with smoke and then with ash. Here's what we know so far. This happened at the American Academy of Paris. That's a design school for international students. 37 people hurt, 4 right now in serious condition. Nearly 300 firefighters responding, with the flames starting to spread to buildings nearby. But officials say now those fires are under control. They're still looking for a couple people believed to be inside. No word yet on what triggered this explosion. NBC's Hallie Ruzzi is joining us now. And Hallie, we mentioned this happened at a design school, an international school. Any indication that it was specifically targeted?
Not really. Obviously, when there's a massive explosion in Paris, the initial fear is that it could have been a terrorist attack. And this happened very close to the French Senate building. but all accounts seem to suggest that it was a gas explosion. Just to give you an idea of where in Paris this happened, I think we have a map we can put up. The blast took place in a building next to the Val de Grace Church in the 5th arrondissement district, which runs south from the city's historic Latin Quarter in Paris's left bank. And the area is both popular with Parisians and tourists, and it's also known for having a big student population. So obviously the fear was that this was some kind of a major target, but all the accounts we're hearing right now seem to suggest that this was just a terrible accident.
And I know that we have been hearing from people who heard this fireball, who watched this fireball explode.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there were a lot of witnesses on the scene. Initially, a lot of people there said that they smelled gas before the blast. We also have a soundbite from a student who lives nearby and described what he saw. Let's take a listen to his account.
Suddenly, I heard a huge noise. I turned towards the noise and saw a gigantic fireball, 20 or 30 meters high, as you see in the movies or the TV. With the noise and the scale of the explosion, I was really shaken. I still have ringing in my ears.
And Hallie, the Paris prosecutor said that after arriving at the scene, that the initial checks of a camera footage suggested that the explosion occurred within the building, which was next to the Val de Grace Church, but the authorities are still saying the cause of the blast hasn't been determined. They've cordoned off the whole area while an investigation is ongoing.
Hallie Aruzzi, thank you very much for that. Back here at home, the stock market is staying pretty calm today, even with some signals that more interest rate hikes are probably coming. You have Fed Chair Jay Powell telling Congress inflation is slowing down, but it is still too high. Brian Chung joins us now. As you always do, Brian, give us the impact to all of us, right, day to day. Probably more interest rate hikes to come. What does that mean for us?
Yeah, well, the impact for us is that it's going to remain really expensive to borrow. That means your mortgage rates are going to remain high, your credit card rates are going to remain high, so are your auto loan rates, anything that it costs you money to borrow. Now, when it comes to the Federal Reserve's thinking here, well, the reason why people are even interested in it is because the Fed moved for the first time in a year and a half to not further raise interest rates in its last meeting last week. Now, for a lot of people, there was a bit of a curious move there because, well, if the Federal Reserve didn't raise interest rates further, did they officially declare mission accomplished on getting inflation down? Well, the answer is no. What the Fed wants to do is allow the time that's usually taken for the bite of its interest rate moves in previous months to take full effect. Take a look at the data, see if it's actually lowering inflation before they decide to further raise interest rates. But the Fed chairman telling Congress today that, look, if we see the economy progress as we expect it to do, we could still see the case for another interest rate hike or two. Again, translation for the average American person, well, those borrowing costs are going to remain high. So for those on the sidelines trying to buy a house, it's still going to be very, very expensive.
Can you, and this is the world's most annoying question, which is why I hesitate, Brian, but if anybody can field it, I know that it's you. If you had to think about what the Fed might do for the rest of the year, right? If you're going to forecast a little bit, maybe your reported analysis hat, if you can put that on for us, what's your sense about the outlook?
Yeah, well, the crystal ball that I have here on my desk actually says it's two interest rate hikes by the end of the year. Well, actually, that is the baseline expectation because the Fed did have a set of economic projections that they had alongside their meeting last week where all the members of the Fed, it's not just Jay Powell, as a reminder, there are over 10 other members that decide on policy. They put down on a piece of paper that they could see the case for 1 or 2 more interest rate hikes by the end of this year. There are 4 more meetings, so that is the expectation. But again, the big takeaway for everyone is that those borrowing costs on all those types of products that we all know about, mortgages, credit cards, and also auto loans, are going to remain really high.
Brian Chung, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So listen, Amazon is getting sued by the government today for allegedly tricking people into signing up for Prime and then sabotaging customers when they tried to cancel. This is according to the FTC in a new lawsuit that accuses Amazon leadership of holding up or even rejecting changes that would have made it easier for people to cancel Prime. The FTC says that those changes, I'm quoting here, adversely affected Amazon's bottom line. In other words, people canceling Prime didn't make Amazon as much money, the FTC says. So how is Amazon responding? They're saying the FTC's claims are false on the facts and the law, saying we look forward to proving our case in court. Aaron Gilchrist is joining us now. Explain how the FTC says Amazon tried to trick people into getting Prime and then made it harder for them to cancel.
Yeah, so this was a 2-year investigation, and Amazon, the FTC says Amazon was using something called dark patterns to sort of manipulate. That's what I said when I saw that term.
What's a dark pattern?
You know what? I want to go right to it. We talked to the person who coined the term dark patterns back in 2010, Harry Brignall, and he explained that he's been campaigning against this for a while for companies that use these tactics in web-based platforms. So let's listen to what he says is the explanation of dark patterns.
Consumers might not really realize it, but when a large business really wants them to do something like signing up or buying something or sharing information, that business will create a team of design experts and psychologists and data scientists who will try lots of persuasive techniques, and they'll track your behavior and they'll measure what works. Sometimes the persuasion slips into manipulation, and if that's unfair or deceptive, it can be illegal.
And so this highly redacted 156-page lawsuit says that basically Amazon made it harder for people to buy things without being a Prime member. And then when people tried to cancel a Prime membership, they made it more difficult. They had to go through, Brignall says there was one point where there's like 11 steps you had to go through to cancel your membership. And so that's, the FTC says, is against the law, and they want Amazon to stop it.
What's going on with the FTC? Because this is the third lawsuit that it's filed against Amazon in just the last month. Is this a part of a broader pattern?
So they've been looking at Amazon in a couple of different ways, different parts of the Amazon company for a while now. Amazon Prime, obviously here, Alexa, and Amazon Ring, the Ring cameras, they settled lawsuits last month, I think it was, to the tune of $30 million. In this case, we may not see a settlement. This may go to court before Amazon walks away from it. We talked to one expert who said that this idea of dark patterns, there's still a gray area on the actual legal definition of it. And so Amazon may, she thinks, go to court with this. Here's what she had to say.
They also may just feel that this is a chance to actually put better definitions around what is a dark pattern or what is a practice that is really unfair or deceptive to consumers versus one that's just aggressive but really doesn't break the law. And the court decision here would help flesh that out.
And so we'll see if this heads to court. Amazon says they look forward to proving their case in court.
That's right. Could be a precedent setter, which is really interesting. If you have Prime, if you're somebody who's a customer that already has Prime, do you need to worry about anything? Do you need to do anything? Or at this point, no?
Not at this point, but the advocates say if you think you want to get rid of it, you need to make some noise to make sure that it gets easier for you to do that.
Aaron Gilchrist, fascinating. Thank you very much for that reporting and for those conversations. Tomorrow, we are looking ahead to a potentially controversial meeting in maybe the next hour or so. It's getting pushed a bit tonight with President Biden getting ready to welcome India's Prime Minister to the White House for his first state visit. Why is it potentially controversial? Think about President Biden. He's described the world as in a battle between democracy and autocracy. And Prime Minister Modi has come under fire for the human rights record in India. That includes Modi's alleged role in a deadly riot that killed 1,000 people, many of them Muslims. It actually got him temporarily banned from the U.S. There were allegations Modi censors journalists and his handling of the Kashmir region with Pakistan. Just look at what happened today in New York. You had demonstrators lining up outside the United Nations. Some were there to support him. Some were there to protest him. Modi did not engage. Instead, he did this. He led hundreds of people in a yoga session, including the actor Richard Gere and New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Kayla Tausche is outside the White House. Explain why this is such a closely watched state visit here. Part of it has to do not just with the United States, not just with India, but with China.
That's exactly right, Hallie. And India is a very important strategic partner for the United States. It's got a big economy, it's got a big population, and so it can be a very big counterweight to China, especially in the Indo-Pacific, where the U.S. is trying to get all of its allies together, like Australia, Japan, and really try to stave off Chinese aggression in the South China Sea. It also is going to be really important for Washington to have an ally like India in its corner as relations with China continue to be testy. Take, for instance, the comments that President Biden made off script last night at a fundraiser in California, calling China's President Xi a dictator. And that caused the Chinese Foreign Ministry to come out swinging. A spokesperson in response called those comments extremely absurd and irresponsible, called them an open political provocation. So certainly the waters are very tense between the U.S. and China, and India could potentially help as a buffer of sorts. But Democrats in Congress want to make sure that human rights, Hallie, do not get swept under the rug. About 70 lawmakers between both the Senate and the House writing a letter to President Biden urging him to bring up human rights in this state visit, saying we want the friendship with India to be built not only on our many shared interests, but also on shared values. Modi is expected to address Congress tomorrow afternoon before the state dinner takes place, and it could be a fairly contentious audience given that, Hallie.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Kayla. It's Prime Minister Modi is also meeting with somebody who's become a bit of a lightning rod here in the United States, and that's Elon Musk. Let me play what Musk had to say about this.
I'm actually incredibly excited about the future of India. I think India has more promise than any large country in the world. I am a fan of Modi's.
I mean, that's a big part of this, right? Modi in a room with people who want to invest in his country. That's what we see in moments like these.
Yeah, it is, Hallie. And you already have the U.S. investing directly about $50 billion a year in India. And you have a lot of major household name American companies that do business there. Apple has supply chains there. Big tech companies have IT operations there. And so tomorrow you'll see executives like the CEOs of Google, Microsoft, and FedEx, who themselves are very prominent Indian Americans in the business community, meeting to try to talk about commerce between the two countries. But from the White House perspective, Hallie, they're really looking for partnerships on critical technology and security and defense, because India is very heavily reliant on Russia for its advanced technological capabilities. The U.S. wants to wean India off Russia, especially as the war in Ukraine continues.
Kayla Tausche live for us there outside the White House. Kayla, thank you. A new firestorm over Supreme Court ethics today, with some senators saying they want to change up how justices do business after a new report from ProPublica found Justice Samuel Alito took luxury gifts from somebody who later had cases in front of the court and then didn't disclose that. ProPublica says back in 2008, there's this hedge fund billionaire, Paul Singer, who flew Alito on a private jet to Alaska for a fishing trip. This is a flight that would have cost like $100,000 one way. Singer is a big-time Republican donor. This is him on the right of this picture. Alito's in the center next to him. In the years after, Singer's hedge fund appeared in front of the court at least 10 times. Those were cases in which Alito did not recuse himself. The justice trying to preemptively address the report before it was published in an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal, writing he had no obligation to step away from cases connected to Singer because he says he only spoke with him a handful of times. If this whole thing sounds kind of familiar, that's because it kind of is. In April, ProPublica reported that another Supreme Court justice, Clarence Thomas, had been getting fancy trips paid for by a billionaire Republican donor. Thomas later claimed he didn't need to disclose those trips either. Follow that story with developments as they come. So listen, right now there is a full ground stop in place at the Dallas airport with folks bracing for some really bad storms. And man, Texas is just trying to catch a break. They have been getting smoked lately with really intense weather, extreme heat, not just there, but in other parts of the South. They're breaking records. Look at some of these temperatures, right? Parts of Texas, 111 in Presidio, 112 in San Angelo, 113 in Del Rio. 25 million people there and in Oklahoma, New Mexico, Louisiana are also facing extreme heat alerts. Officials say do whatever you can to stay cool here. You've got other people, 12 million of us, looking at thunderstorms, possibly tornadoes, big hail, 2 inches or larger, wind gusts of 75 miles an hour from Wyoming down to Texas. NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns is joining us now. And Bill, it is not a shocker to say it's hot during the summer in Texas. It is a shocker to say these specific numbers. It's this hot at this time of year in Texas.
And this has the climate change fingerprints all over it, Hallie. I mean, you know, on average, people say, you know, the temperatures have changed 2 to 3 degrees, but that's the difference between an all-time record high and, you know, an exceptionally hot day. So let me explain. So obviously, we're talking central Texas, southern Texas. That's where the worst of it is today. And by the way, in Del Rio, it's now 113 degrees. Why is that important? The all-time hottest temperature in Del Rio ever measured was 113 yesterday. So they've done it now 2 days in a row. The 2 hottest days in the history of Del Rio have been back-to-back. And we could even go another degree higher here in the next hour or two. Laredo's not far behind at 112. And in case you're wondering, the hottest temperature ever measured in Texas happened on June 28th. So it's not that crazy to get really hot temperatures. But the last day after day, and I'm sorry for everyone in this region, because the extended forecast, the heat dome sits over you for the next 10 days at least. So this is just going to be an ongoing story. So now let's talk about, the climate change aspect. So our friends at Climate Central have come up with something called the Climate Shift Index. So this is our typical curve. A lot of days are kind of average. This could be for any location. But because we've warmed our planet by about 2 degrees, that has shifted a little bit. So maybe your average temperature, you don't really notice that much. If you change the temperature in your house by 1 or 2 degrees on your thermostat, you won't really notice. But on those exceptionally hot days, that's when you're going to notice it, because you're going to have more of them. They're going to be more frequent. So they've come up with this Climate Shift Index to let us know, when the frequency is maybe, if in this case, 3 times higher. The index goes from 0 to 5. 5 is extremely rare. So now let me show you the map for Texas that has that 5 covering a good chunk of the central and southern portion of the state. That's how we know that this has the fingerprints of an extreme climate event. Events like this are happening more rapidly, but this one's exceptional.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Bill, when you lay it out like that, when you can see based on the science what the difference is. Bill Cairns, always good to see you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Hoping those folks in Texas get some relief at some point soon. We got a lot more to get to here on the show, including a CDC panel just voting on a new vaccine for RSV. Parents, listen up. We'll tell you who they say should get it and how often. Plus, a star of Tiger King just convicted on a bunch of charges. What police say he did, coming up. A major alarm bell tonight in the world of education with this new report showing math and reading scores dropping for 13-year-olds. In some instances, the worst numbers we've seen in literal decades. This is according to this test known as the nation's report card. It shows that, listen, we've been in a learning loss since the pandemic, and there is no sign that that is getting any better anytime soon. Student scores plunged 9 points in math. The last time it was that low was 1990. Reading levels are the lowest they've been since 2004. The leader of the country's second biggest school district tells our team everybody should be worried here. Listen.
As a nation, this is a time to treat this as a national crisis that it really is. Across the country, we need to take bold action to remedy and accelerate kids across our country towards their full academic potential.
Lindsay Reiser is joining us now to break this down for us. We've seen a lot of coverage today, right, Lindsay, of what these numbers are, what they mean. And I think for parents, you talk about 13-year-olds, that's like end of middle school. It's horrific to see some of these numbers, right? People want their kids to be educated here. The question is, what is the solve, right? What is the solution? Because we've been seeing these numbers drop since the pandemic. Kids are back in school now. Kids are back in class. When are they going to start going up again? I know you can't answer this question, but I wonder what experts are telling you about that.
But I mean, Hallie, you just heard that they're a national crisis. I mean, this is a wake-up call for what we as a country are going to do, because our kids right now are struggling. That is such a formative time. Middle school sets you up for success in high school. And so what we're seeing with these numbers is that this isn't even just a pandemic-related issue. We were seeing a decline, as the graph that you just showed display, since 2012. Of course, when we're looking at the assessment that was released, the results today, we're talking about a sample of 8,700 13-year-olds who were given this assessment from October to December. And we're seeing these drops, a 9-point drop in math, a 4-point drop in reading compared to 4 years prior. That is pre-pandemic. But if you take a look at that steady decline, I mean, that is the trend that we're talking about also that experts want to reverse. So let's talk about some of the factors that I'm hearing from experts, Hallie. On one hand, yes, we have the pandemic, that classroom disruption. But the other issue is engagement. So absenteeism, just getting in the chair. We're seeing increases of students who are missing 5 or more days. We're talking about reading for fun outside of school. Fewer students are reporting doing that. And we're also talking about just overall a sense of apathy that teachers are feeling from their students, where school isn't a priority. Their attention spans are short. Let's listen to what one teacher told us.
There are definite gaps in learning, but the bigger gaps are in learning behaviors and their readiness to even show up and be attentive or be prepared. That is where I feel like the biggest learning loss has happened. And of course, that then impacts their ability to be ready for instruction and absorb all that instruction.
So the education secretary points to the need for more teachers. Teachers are saying we need smaller class sizes. But Hallie, this is also kind of a moment for parents, for students, teachers, and policymakers to really take a step back and say, is what we're doing enough, Hallie?
Lindsay Reiser, thank you very much for that important reporting. Appreciate it. Tonight, prosecutors say the DNA of the man charged with murdering 4 University of Idaho students is a match to DNA found at the crime scene. The suspect gave a cheek swab to investigators, and now they say that that cheek swab matched DNA found on a knife sheath at the student's house at the crime scene. This is according to a recent court filing by county prosecutors. You remember this. The suspect's accused of breaking into the home of these students, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, Kaylee Goncalves, and stabbing them to death in November of last year. Aaron McLaughlin is joining us now. Tell us more about this, Aaron, and the significance that this DNA match, as officials lay it out, could have.
Well, it certainly is a significant development, Hallie, especially considering this DNA evidence, prosecutors allege, is what led them to Bryan Kohberger as a prime suspect in this grisly murder. They, in these court documents, describe how they found this DNA sample on a knife sheath that they allege was found underneath a comforter and underneath partially one of the victim's bodies at the crime scene. From this knife sheath, they were able to extract this DNA. They turned the DNA over to the FBI. The FBI, according to these court documents, using tactics that are widely available in the public, then was able to build a family tree with what they allege is hundreds of Bryan Kohberger's relatives. From there, narrowing down the search to Bryan Kohberger himself, the FBI passing off that tip to local authorities, who then went and made the arrest. In these court documents now, this news of a statistical DNA match saying, quote, the DNA profile is at least 5.37 octillion times more likely to be seen if the defendant is the source than if an unrelated individual randomly selected from the general population is the source. Now, Bryan Kohberger has yet to enter a plea. He stood silent at that court proceeding last month. A not guilty plea has been entered on his behalf. His defense counsel is now pushing for more time. Given the grand jury indictment last month, they want more time to look through what they say are thousands and thousands of pages of evidence that the prosecution used to secure that indictment. Hallie.
Aaron McLaughlin, thank you very much for that reporting. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, we are just learning that Hunter Biden, the president's son, is going to have his first court appearance next month, July 26th, on those tax and gun charges that came out this week. You'll remember that Hunter Biden apparently worked out a plea agreement that's going to see him plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges and is expected to have a felony gun charge against him dismissed if he meets certain conditions. Legal experts tell NBC News he's not going to see the inside of a jail cell for his crimes. He probably faces probation instead. That's the likelihood. Number 2, there's a CDC advisory committee that just voted to recommend RSV vaccines, not for kids, but for adults 65 and up. The CDC director still has to sign off before they become publicly available. RSV can cause mild cold-like symptoms for a lot of people, but it kills up to 10,000 older people every year. It can also be a risk for the very young. Number 3, a January 6th rioter who used a stun gun on a D.C. police officer during the insurrection at the Capitol has just been sentenced to 12 and a half years in prison. He pleaded guilty to a bunch of charges in February. Investigators found he also bragged about the attack online. Number 4, remember that guy Doc Antle from the Tiger King series? He was one of Joe Exotic's big rivals. Well, he was apparently just convicted of wildlife trafficking in Virginia, accused of buying endangered lion cubs there and putting them on display at his privately owned zoo in South Carolina. His defense attorney called his prosecution politically motivated. Number 5, the U.S. women's national team is out with its roster for the World Cup tonight. A lot of familiar faces: Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, Kelly O'Hara, set to play in their 4th World Cup to defend their championship title. The team's coming off back-to-back World Cup wins. They're hoping to add another in Australia and New Zealand in a couple of weeks to make it a triple. They can do it, I believe. When we come back, a new warning from the top Senate Democrat, why he's calling for all hands on deck when it comes to AI. Next. The top Senate Democrat calling for all hands on deck in Congress to get ahead of AI in the latest push by lawmakers to try to regulate artificial intelligence. This is something that a lot of tech business leaders have warned about. Here's Senator Schumer.
I believe Congress must join the AI revolution, but there are real dangers, too. job displacement, misinformation, a new age of weaponry, the risk of being unable to manage this technology altogether.
Okay, so those are the risks, right? Then what are the solutions? Well, as Schumer lays it out, the goals would be to protect elections from misinformation generated by AI, to make sure that U.S. workers and intellectual property is shielded, to prevent exploitation by algorithms, and to create some guardrails to ward off bad actors. All of it coming after President Biden met with AI leaders yesterday to find out more about how big tech companies are using AI. Hallie Vitale is joining us now. A lot of attention on AI, Hallie, and that seems to be the sort of timing nexus. Why Chuck Schumer wants to get on this ASAP. Explain that.
Yeah, get while the getting is good, right? I mean, if everyone is focused on this one topic, which we know everyone is talking about things like ChatGPT right now, Schumer wants to be able to capitalize on that. But there's also the added bonus, he would explain it, that this is now the start of the conversation around AI. They may as well get in on the ground floor of regulating it while it's in the common forum and everyone is talking about it. He thinks that Congress, and this is largely true, was behind the 8 ball in regulating things like social media and other past platforms, 5G, for example. Now this is a chance for them to do it while it's fresh and for them to get in while everyone else is talking about it. Whether they'll actually do that, though, that, of course, remains to be seen.
Well, can you handicap the chances, Hallie? What would you say?
I stopped handicapping Congress a long time ago. But look, I think there's reason to be skeptical because we saw urgency around such things like regulating social media platforms. There were so many hearings on that. We had the head of TikTok come before the House committee. We had the heads of Facebook and other places come before various committees here on the Senate side. And yet those bills never came to fruition. Yes, we saw Facebook banned on government devices. That was a small step, but certainly nothing sweeping in terms of regulating those social media platforms, despite the fact that it was all anyone was talking about up here for months. It is now true that everyone is talking about AI, and I think that what Schumer is hoping is that he can bring experts, put them all in a room, save people from having to go individual expert by individual expert, and get people more information at one time, that it takes it out of the slow, sometimes bogged down process that can happen in committees. That's not to say these bills won't go through committees and go through their similar granular process, but at least the fact-finding phase can be done all at once, and that's what Schumer's hoping to do here, to try to help his colleagues get all the information they could possibly need, the pros, the cons, and then they can figure out how to legislate around it.
Hallie Vitale live for us on the Hill. Hallie, good to see you. Thank you. Coming up here on the show, how our reporter at CNBC got some big names to go on the record about China's push to try to steal secret U.S. technology. It is legit something out of a spy movie. That's coming up. Plus, the moment officials found a previously unknown ancient city in the middle of the jungle. Time now to get the backstory, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. And tonight, it's all about the spying push by China, the really obvious efforts to try to steal critical information about sensitive U.S. technology, according to officials. It's some stuff straight out of a spy thriller, right? In this new CNBC documentary that takes us inside this one very specific meeting, one very tense meeting in 2017, at GE Aviation's headquarters. This is a part of the company that makes stuff like pieces for commercial planes and military jets. That's when an employee, who law enforcement believed was being pursued by Chinese spies for information, was confronted by his bosses, by federal agents. It was a sting operation, and it wasn't small potatoes. Listen to how folks who talked to CNBC described it.
This is a spy story.
This is as big of a case as we've had in 20 years.
There is a Chinese spy who's trying to obtain secret technology.
A story that shows how millions of American jobs now and in the future are on the line.
So that GE employee was just a cog in what turned out to be a bigger operational wheel from the Chinese to try to infiltrate America's companies, officials say, steal their secret information and get not just an edge on them, but to try to eliminate the companies altogether. This one incident triggered a huge crackdown on China's spying in the U.S. and led to a big first in the fight against Chinese operations. An intel officer and handler of that GE employee extradited to the U.S. and sentenced to 20 years in prison. CNBC's Eamon Javers is behind that new documentary. Eamon, you know this segment. It's take us behind the curtain, right? Bring us into like the reporter's notebook on a project that I know you've been working on for a very long time here. This specific case was settled with this intel officer's sentencing back in 2022. Tell me about your process in thinking, okay, I want to highlight this. I want to make a doc about it. I want to put this in the spotlight here.
Yeah, you know, this came about because I was talking to my sources in the U.S. intelligence community, and they were telling me over and over again, you know, we don't think corporate America gets it. You know, CEOs, folks in boardrooms, they understand that Chinese spies are trying to steal their intellectual property, but they don't understand the scale of the effort that's being arrayed against them. And they all pointed to this particular case because it's the first time that a Chinese Ministry of State Security officer saw the inside of a U.S. prison ever. And Ministry of State Security in China is sort of like their FBI and CIA put together. They do both kinds of things. So this is a historic case, which is why we wanted to focus on it. But we also wanted to talk to all of the law enforcement and intelligence professionals who can guide us through this secret world. And we talked to a lot of spies and a lot of G-men.
You talked about law enforcement officials. You talked to the FBI director, to Chris Wray. Yes. Let me play a little bit of that discussion between the two of you.
Every major American corporation in any of these fields needs to assume that they are a target to be either replaced or gutted.
What's at stake here for the U.S. economy?
American quality of life, American innovation, ultimately American national security. It's just not just Wall Street, it's Main Street.
Okay, so that's Chris Wray, but also Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Mark Warner in a joint interview. That stuff, just so people know, that's rare. We don't see that all the time, right? They sat down and talked with you on the record. I assume that is because they felt like this is something that needs to have an alarm sounded about it, right? The issue of Chinese spying and intellectual property.
Warner and Rubio are the chairman and ranking member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, so they're getting all this raw intelligence. They see the scale of the threat, and they've been trying to warn corporate executives for years about this. They say the mood has been changing a little bit since the pandemic. They're getting a more receptive ear to that. But both senators wanted to talk to us side by side because they wanted to illustrate visually the fact that this is a bipartisan issue. They work together on this, even in Washington. Hallie, as you know, so deeply divided on everything. This was a rare bipartisan interview.
The other side of the coin, of course, is the Chinese. And the Chinese government, in response to this documentary, responded to you. I want to read, just so people know how they responded. They said that the Chinese government has never participated or supported anyone in any form in stealing commercial secrets. Some people and institutions in the U.S. have been making false accusations. Putting on your sort of like analyst, doc maker hat here, what kind of an impact, and I know this might be tough to predict, but what kind of an impact do you think shining a spotlight on this, as you're doing in this documentary, could have on these Chinese operations?
Well, that's an interesting question. One of the people that we talked to in this is a longtime CIA counterintelligence official named Jim Olson, who was like a total Mission Impossible guy. He actually was stationed for the CIA in Moscow undercover during the height of the Cold War. It was the kind of guy who was like dropping into manhole covers and tapping phone lines for the CIA in Russia. He's a veteran now, and he says what he wants is for the CIA and other U.S. intelligence community entities to do a lot more of this, right? Send a lot more double agents back at the Chinese intelligence officers who are trying to steal these secrets. He feels like the U.S. intelligence community has been maybe a little bit too passive, if I can put words in his mouth, on this, and he would like to see a much more aggressive spy versus spy front. But otherwise, you've got to look at the companies themselves that are doing business in China, exposing their intellectual property to China, and thinking about how they're going to make money there. And what U.S. intelligence wants them to think about a little bit more is how they're going to stay in business long term, given the scale of this threat.
Eamon Javers, you are doing so much cool stuff, and we're super excited to watch the full doc tonight. Eamon, thank you so much.
Hallie.
China's corporate spy war. That's tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern, over on CNBC. Do not miss it. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our foreign desk has done it for you. Here's some of what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Honduras, an official there says gang members in a women's prison killed at least 46 inmates with machetes, by shooting them, by setting them on fire. Family members said gang members had been threatening inmates for weeks. The country's president fired and replaced the security minister, but didn't say how these gangs were able to get these weapons into the prison in the first place. Officials are obviously investigating. Out of the UK, London police say they arrested a man after he allegedly stabbed two people at a hospital. One of the victims was seriously hurt. Police say they're looking into this, but they're not treating it as terror-related right now. And out of Mexico, the country's Anthropology Institute says a previously unknown ancient Mayan city has been discovered in the jungle. They just found a city. They say it was probably this really important center like 1,000 years ago. It has big buildings that are kind of pyramid-esque, stone columns, even a ball court. Still to come here on the show. A lot of people are talking about who's going to be the next LeBron in the NBA draft. But there's also a lot of attention on a guy who has never even played basketball before, how he ended up on the draft list. Coming up.
So I made a bet with my friends, and I made it into the NBA draft.
That is 21-year-old Jordan Haber. And with respect to Jordan, LeBron, he is not. He did not play basketball in college. He did not play basketball in high school. He did not play basketball in middle school. He's going to law school in the fall. But he found this loophole in the league's collective bargaining agreement to get his name on the draft list. So Shaq Brewster, who's joining us now, I guess Jordan's going to be heading to the draft. Like, what is he going to show up in a suit? Like, is he getting ready to shake Adam Silver's hand? Like, what's up here?
That's his goal. He will be there. He paid his own way. He essentially got to exploit a provision in the CBA that is intended to make sure that high school players go on to college before entering the draft. Look at this provision here, because some of the language from one section of it, it says that in order to enter the draft, the player has to be at least 19 years of age during the calendar year in which the draft is held, and at least one NBA season has elapsed since the player's graduation from high school. He fits that. There are other people that fit that as well and also fill out the forms to go in the draft. The difference here is, Hallie, and you see it there, he is a TikTok star. So he's been documenting this entire thing. I asked him, you know, you're not expected to be drafted on draft night. What do you want to come from all of this? Listen to what he told me.
I genuinely want people to look at this and go, I can do anything if I put my mind to it. I've had kids DM me being like, hey, I tried out for my high school basketball team because of you. I've had adults be like, hey, I watched your YouTube video. I sent a cold DM to my boss or somebody else, and I got a promotion, or I got a little bit of a raise, or I got some compliments at work. That means more to me than any single view could ever mean.
You know, we talk about the draft, and this is a day where NBA players are soon-to-be NBA players look forward to as one where their dreams come true. He wants to share in a little bit of that inspiration, Hallie.
I sure hope, Shaq, that it gives you some hope that beyond your correspondent career, you have a future maybe at the NBA
There's
draft.
a chance.
What's so funny about this Jordan thing is that he's gone viral for not being a basketball player. Somebody else has gone viral for being a very, very good basketball player, and that's Wemby, who we showed at the top of the show here, right? A total sensation, expected to be pretty much a done deal that the Spurs are going to take him first, right?
Yeah, there is no suspense that he will be going to the San Antonio Spurs. Of course, you need to have the draft that needs to happen, but everyone knows that that is likely where he'll be going, and that's why you're seeing so much attention around him. That's why you're seeing the idea of him pitching, throwing out the first pitch. Now, the other names, the other projected draft picks that you're seeing on your screen there's some uncertainty there. We don't know where each person will be placed, but going back to Wemby, I mean, he will be the person who everyone is talking about. He threw out that pitch. I want you to look at this video when he went through the subway for his very first time. There's a lot of eyes that will be on him and a lot of excitement about his entry into the NBA.
Do you have to duck when you get on the subway, Shaq?
Obviously, Hallie, you know, my height just...
Sure, 7'3", Victor Wembanyama. Thank you so much. Shaq Brewster, I know you're going to be... I know you got the good assignment watching the draft tomorrow night. We're thrilled for you. Glad to have you on the show. Thank you, friend. Appreciate it. That does it for us this hour and the one before it. If you missed any of it, you can catch us anywhere. Peacock, Hulu, YouTube. Just search Hallie Jackson Now. Top Story picks it up.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.